It is Throwback Thursday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. We're coming to you from the Lee Company studios. I'm here in Columbia. Wade is at the southern base down in Pulaski, and we will be here for the next couple of hours discussing local, regional, and national sports. Boy, will we ever. Wade, happy Thursday, man.
Happy Thursday to you. Good to be with you. Good to be with everybody. We are one sleep closer toward the weekend. We got a jam-packed show. A couple more sleeps. It'll be Boxing Day in 2 weeks. Christmas will already be in the rearview mirror, and we will be on to New Year's festivities at that point. So it's a busy time, but a good Thursday to everybody.
Man, you're rushing things along. I'm not sure I'm quite ready for all that, but it's certainly coming.
I just got a package notification that an order we were desperately waiting on is being sent. We're up against the deadline, so I'm on high alert here.
I received a package yesterday that I was really concerned about getting in time. I've still got one hanging out there, so we got a little time, but you're always nervous until they actually get here.
No doubt. And if it gets here, Christmas will be saved because there's like 4 folks that are included in this one order. So if it arrives on time, Christmas will be good. If it doesn't arrive on time, it'll be lumps of coal for in my stocking this year, to say the least.
Yeah. Well, we'll be wishing you luck because I certainly don't want you getting coal. Hey, in our second hour, we will be joined by Tony SIRACUSA from Last Word on Sports. He's based over on the Atlantic coast side of the country, and he's going to bring us a little insight into a certain college football coaching move that, if you are a sports fan at all, I'm sure you have heard of here over the last little bit. So, but yeah, we're going to get a little into the Bill Belichick to North Carolina situation with Tony here in the second hour. In the next segment, we will be joined on Coach's Corner by Loretto boys basketball coach Greg Tips. The Mustangs off to a 5-0 start, and if you recall back 2 or 3 months ago, they made an interesting addition to their roster over this summer. Going to talk to Coach Tips a little bit about how things are going down in southern Lawrence County on the hardwood with the Mustangs. Again, it's also Throwback Thursday, and at the top of the 3 o'clock hour, we will be throwing it back to a recent conversation we had with Union University women's basketball coach and athletics director and 2025 Women's Basketball Hall of Fame inductee Mark Campbell. So looking forward to that as well. We'll also be talking a little NFL. It's Thursday night football tonight, and North Carolina apparently is not the only school that has hired a football coach here in the last little bit. We'll be talking a little bit about some other moves along those lines, as well as transfer portal movement, folks going in, folks coming out. So there's a lot to get into, man. Looking forward to doing so here over the next couple of hours. Should be a lot of fun. So this North Carolina situation is just, it's beyond intriguing. I don't know what's a stronger word than intriguing, but, you know, we talked to John Bryce earlier in the week about that, and he called it the most intriguing position opening of the season, basically. And so, again, that kind of puts you on high alert. And as this thing has progressed, it continues to be that. So looking forward to getting into that with Tony SIRACUSA here in the 3 o'clock hour. But that's what we've got lined up here for the next little bit. And I guess at this point, we should go ahead and get to it with no further ado. Let's get to yesterday's results and today's schedule on the rundown.
This is the rundown.
Let's fire this thing up, ladies and gentlemen. Results from last night. That's me,
See
John
none.
Travolta from Pulp.
Yeah, there you go, Benny Vega.
There. So no results of local interest from last night. Everybody had the night off, getting recharged to get you cranked up. But I do have some schedule updates to crank up for tonight. Let's get to them now. Doubleheader basketball action on the hardwood. DCA is traveling to BGA. All these games beginning at 6 p.m. It'll be Pickett County at Eagleville tonight. Battle Creek will travel to Fairview. Franklin Classical will play host to Riverside Christian. It'll be Perry County on the road at Houston County. Lawrence County is down at Muscle Shoals, Alabama. John Overton visiting Pearl Cone tonight. Innsworth is at Rockvale. Frank Hughes will visit Santa Fe, and Martin Luther King will head to Stratford.
Girls only games. Davies County out of Kentucky plays at Father Ryan. That game tips off at 3:30 this evening. 6 o'clock, a girls only matchup. East Robertson travels to Portland. That game tips at 7. On the ice, the Nashville Predators head west, taking on the Dallas Stars, trying to snap an 8-game losing streak. Puck drop is at 7 o'clock. You can see it on FanDuel Sports, and at 7:15 tonight on Amazon Prime. It's an NFC West showdown as the Rams travel to San Francisco, taking on the 49ers. Again, that's a 7:15 kick. You can see it on Amazon Sports. Ladies and gentlemen, that is your rundown. Your top story brought to you as always by the fine folks over at Piggly Wiggly and Neely's Mill here in Columbia. Be sure and check out their delicious daily deli lunch options available from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m. Also, their hand-cut meats and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill, Columbia, bringing you our top story. And since the tweet for this was written, we audibled because something broke late. Nashville is set to host the football championship series championship games in 26 and 27, which I guess are after the 25 and the 26 seasons. It'll be for the next 2 years. Those games will be held at First Bank Stadium on the campus of Vanderbilt University. The Nashville Sports Council, the Ohio Valley Conference, Vanderbilt, and the city of Nashville co-partnering on those efforts. Those games again will be played January 5th, 2026 and January 4th, 2027. They most recently have been held in Frisco, Texas, but I think they are undergoing some, or will be undergoing some renovations. This year's FCS championship game will be Monday, January 6th in Frisco. So FCS championships coming back to Tennessee, actually. They were held for a pretty good while at Finley Stadium down in Chattanooga, where we just were last weekend. So
big news for the OVC, big news for the FCS, big news for the city of Nashville, and obviously big news for Vanderbilt and First Bank Stadium. This is a big deal, and I don't know about you, Mo, but this was one that I had no real inkling about. So kind of a pleasant surprise. Very exciting stuff. We know that our guy Scott Ramsey always is cooking. He's always up to something. And if you thought he was locked in and solely focused on Iowa and Missouri for the Music City Bowl, guess again, because he's got something else up his sleeve. This was a cool story that came down this morning.
it absolutely was. And it, like you said, kind of came out of nowhere, not a whole lot of warning to it. I don't know if this goes back to Frisco once the renovations on the facilities that they're working on get done, or what that looks like, or if 27 is as far out as they have planned. I don't know what this looks like, but regardless, this is a huge get for the city of Nashville and the folks involved with this. Big feather in the Ohio Valley Conference's cap, and like you said, in the Nashville Sports Council's cap. So this is
for
big.
sure. And OVC, we just had Kyle Schwartz on a couple weeks ago talking about the cachet of the conference kind of getting back in the mix at the football level. But this is kind of big for them as a brand in general. They had kind of been affiliated with the women's Final Four, been affiliated with some regionals, but Nashville had kind of dwindled or dried up a little bit in terms of OVC partnerships in big postseason capacity. So this is a cool get. I don't think they've hosted an NCAA event since like 2018. So kind of the OVC getting back. I know we've had a lot of conference realignment and some teams coming, some teams going. Kind of cool for them to kind of solidify themselves and strengthen that partnership with the Music City.
Yeah, the last big presence, obviously the Ohio Valley Conference is based in Brentwood, but the last big presence for the conference in Nashville, I guess, was the basketball tournaments, which had been held at Municipal Auditorium. They have since moved to Evansville, Indiana, and I guess that's where they still are. But the OVC hasn't really had much of a presence in Nashville in terms of contests, games being played, that kind of thing, other than obviously OVC member Tennessee State University. So good to get back and have a presence in the city and to get some folks coming in here, on a national level for an event.
Absolutely. I mean, hey, can you imagine January? We got folks coming in from North Dakota versus somebody like UC Davis,
Montana. Yeah.
Montana, teams that you might not necessarily have much of a footprint or a welcoming mat in terms of a real event. Some folks in those communities are definitely going to be hoping and praying that their team makes a deep run in next season's FCS playoffs.
Yeah, trying to quickly pull up the FCS playoff bracket here and see who we've got going. Obviously, we had Tennessee State make the opening round, traveled out to Montana, took a 41-27 loss. They are down to the quarterfinals right now. Tomorrow night, you've got Idaho and Montana State playing, followed by 3 Saturday games. Incarnate Word is at South Dakota State. UC Davis is at South Dakota, and Mercer is at North Dakota State. So all of those hosts are your top 4 seeds, obviously. And yeah, so you feel like there's some combination of somebody from the Dakotas or Montana that's going to be traveling in here in 26 and 27, because those schools have kind of been your mainstays here in FCS/1AA here over the past few years. So cracking that code for some other folks may not come very easily.
Yeah, and you ran through the bracket, and I got a little triggered right there because in our Fearless Forecasters last week, I think I missed every single FCS game. Villanova really let me down. I swung for them as the 11 seed, and they dropped a heartbreaker at Incarnate Word by 7.
13-6. Yeah,
that was a hard fought game, but Illinois State let me down. I also swung for the fences with Lehigh, and they let me down, getting blown out by Idaho. So feels like the FCS playoffs, there are a few little runs. You got Idaho as an 8 seed, kind of still holding the torch for the quote-unquote underdogs. Mercer, I suppose, as a 7 as well. But there is a touch of blue blood even at that level still sprinkled in. So you can see why some of those folks, and in particular those fan bases, kind of are already thinking, man, hey, Frisco's nice, but Nashville next year sounds pretty nice too.
Absolutely. Yeah, chalk definitely held through that round of 16 there. And it feels FCS has kind of felt like haves and have-nots here for a pretty good while, pretty predictable. So we'll see what transpires here over this next couple of weeks. Again, the quarterfinals are this weekend, semis next weekend, the 21st, and then the championship game again will be played at Toyota Stadium in Frisco on January 6th. And then preparation begins for the next 2 years of championships to take place here in Nashville. Again, Chattanooga hosted from 1997 to 2009. The championships have been in Frisco since then. And again, not 100% sure what the plan is, if this is just a 2-year thing or if it extends beyond that. But Scott Ramsey, on behalf of the Nashville Sports Council Board of Directors and entire Nashville community, we look forward to hosting the FCS National Championship in Music City in 26 and 27. We appreciate the confidence of the NCAA and FCS Selection Committee in our ability to showcase this prestigious championship event in Nashville and provide a memorable experience for the players, coaches, administrators, and fans. So, the newly renovated First Bank Stadium seats approximately 35,000. Features modern facilities and fan-focused amenities with a state-of-the-art locker room and 4-level press box. The nearby John Rich complex offers 3 practice fields, a 2,000 square foot weight room, and synthetic turf matching the stadium's surface, ensuring consistently for the athletes. So I guess as opposed to in other years where teams have had to find other places to practice, like when they were coming in here for the Music City Bowl and that kind of thing, everybody will be able to practice on campus in addition to play in First Bank Stadium, which is probably no small feat in terms of the logistics for the game.
Absolutely. And this is massive too. And I think it kind of gives me the vibes of Nashville Soccer Club and playing at Geodis. Yeah, it's cool. Or the U.S. national team playing at Geodis. It's cool to have a game at a city or at a venue like Nissan Stadium. But unless you're going to sell that thing completely out, I'm always a huge fan of playing even concerts and, wrestling for that matter. Have them at a smaller venue where you're going to get a massive crowd. It just looks better. It feels better. So when I saw this news that it was going to be at First Bank Stadium, I kind of was really excited because I think the atmosphere, as cool as it would be, maybe at a Nissan Stadium, I think it's going to be really cool being played on Vanderbilt Stadium on campus as well.
I think you're 100% accurate there. With a 35,000 seat facility, you've got a pretty good chance of it filling up depending on who you get in here and that kind of thing. So should be a lot of fun. Let's go ahead and take a break here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back to the Lee Company studios, it'll be Coach's Corner as we check in with Loretto boys basketball coach Greg Tips. Stay tuned. Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Step into the Lionel retail store at Opry Mills, Nashville, and you'll be captivated by all the magic of the 123-year history of Lionel trains. Whether you're already a train enthusiast or just getting started, Lionel will energize your love for trains. NASCAR fan? Come check out your local Lionel station to learn all there is to know about model trains and die-cast NASCAR collectibles. Visit nashville.lionel.com or call 615-455-9399.
Well, we went all out for you this year, didn't we, little girl? Yep, we got you what you wanted with all the bells and whistles.
A brand new car?
Let's go check it out. Come on. We're here.
Oh my gosh, we're going to the garage. I got a car.
Yep, let's get in here. Let me show you what's going on.
Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Duggar, got your 18 SEER heat pump with your ultraviolet home treatment system.
I cannot believe it. Thank you.
Yes! Give the gift of clean air this year. Merry Christmas from the Busy Bee family.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
He shoots, and he scores!
Welcome back to Throwback Thursday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. We are in the Lee Company studios here in Columbia and in Pulaski, and it's time for Coach's Corner, presented by 10 Pin Alley Eat, Play, Party. We are pleased to be joined by Loretto boys basketball coach Greg Tips. The Mustangs off to a 5-0 start with a team that came out of last season with some pretty high expectations for 24-25 and had those expectations only accelerated a little bit over the summer. Coach Tips, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, man. Good to be here.
Well, good to have you. Hey, tell me what you like about your team 5-0 to this point.
Yeah, I like a lot about them. Really good group of guys. Fantastic to work with. Every day in practice we haven't had a bad day of practice yet. Very competitive. I like how hard we're playing. We're getting better at a lot of things, and so really pleased with where we're at right now.
Again, a season that wrapped up a little earlier than you all had anticipated in the region semifinals last year in Region 5. 2A, but a lot of talent returning to this team.
Mm-hmm.
As you exited last year, what were your thoughts about 24-25?
We were excited. A little bit of a sense of urgency with this group. I've coached this group of seniors since they were in the 8th grade, and we finished state runner-up in the Tennessee Middle School Athletic Association. And then the 7th graders were my juniors were 7th graders on that team. And then then the next year we won the state, beat a young man that was actually at Briarcrest right now named Fred Smith, who's a big time player. I think he got MVP of their state championship game last year. But so there's a sense of urgency because this junior and senior class, we hadn't gotten to Murfreesboro yet. And it's some of the stuff has been unfortunate with some injuries. Our junior point guard started. This is his 3rd year starting. He hadn't played in a region tournament game yet because of injuries. And then last second shots in each of those games. But even with the injuries, there was a lot of things we left undone in those games that we've got to get better at. And so, a sense of urgency to get this group to where we need to be and want to be.
Coach, as you come into this season, you've already obviously played some challenging foes. Especially, I'm curious, that Richland game, for those that maybe not as familiar, despite the fact they are a single A team and you guys are a really good double A team, what do you take away from playing a squad like that, who is well coached and is going to give you a stiff test, even though it's obviously single A competition? You guys got a nice win versus them.
Yeah, I don't look at the A's so much. Not to call anybody out, but the worst team we've played, two of the worst teams we've played this year have been bigger schools,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not that they're bad. It's just I'm a single A guy. I played at Moore County under Billy Mooney, so I'm the last person that's going to look at how many A's there are. And Richland is one of those teams. They're hard nosed. They're tough. I think they're going to have a fabulous year in Class A. I love the job that Coach Lovelace done. So that's kind of become a little area rivalry around here. We played them in a couple of sub-states when we were both Class A, and won one and lost one of those. So we've got a good thing going with them, and I think it makes both teams better.
I think so. And with that being said, I am curious. Obviously, winning the game is of the, perhaps utmost importance. But when you go into a big non-district or non-conference game, do you have something kind of circled personally, you as a coach? Hey, we definitely want to work on this particular night, even though it may not be something that we don't use until much later in the year. Do you have kind of an individualized game plan, win or lose, that you want to execute in some of these early season games?
We haven't to this point. There will be Monday night. We go to Moore County. There's going to be some things that we do differently for that game after we get through our first 6 games here, because we got Stone Memorial on Saturday. Up until this point, we're trying to do what wins games in tournaments, which is guard people and hold people to one shot and try to get second shots. We really haven't ran a lot of our stuff offensively. Trying to get good at basic stuff, and then as we go along, like I said, that'll start next Monday. We're going to tinker with some things defensively to do some things out of. Now, in practice, we work on some things that maybe that we're not going to do in games. But to this point, we haven't really done that in games. In January, when we play some out of league games, that'll be the time that we probably will do some of that.
Greg Tips, boys basketball coach at Loretto High School in Southern Lawrence County, joining us here on Coach's Corner, presented by 10 Pin Alley. Greg, like I said, a lot of expectations for this team coming into 24-25 at the end of the 23-24 season. As constructed at that point, you then get the good fortune of adding one of the top 2-sport athletes in this area, if not in the state, in Grayson Burleson, an all-state basketball and baseball performer from Summertown, enrolls at your school, puts on a Mustang uniform, and I've had people just tell me, just go ahead and engrave the trophy at this point.
Yeah, that's inaccurate. But he's been fun to coach. He's blended in with our guys seamlessly, and that's been from the beginning. And what I really appreciate about Grayson is he's a kid that's now gone over 2,200 points, and he's being very efficient on the offensive end. He's averaging 20 points, something or another, and he's doing it on 11 shots. He's rebounding the basketball. He's sharing the basketball, and he knows he's got really good players around him. He's getting better defensively. Our system's a little bit different. Not that it's better or worse than other people, but we play man defense a little bit different. So he's having to learn how to do that, and he's still a work in progress on that end. But his willingness to learn and his willingness to compete, that's been there from the jump. So he's done a really good job, and our guys are enjoying having him around.
19 points, 8 boards in your 52-44 win over at Lawrence County on Tuesday night. I mean, there are those that would call it a case of the rich getting richer, but when you bring in someone who has had the type career that he has had at Summertown, I guess there's always a concern, like you said, about just how he is going to mesh with what you've already got on hand there, and the fact that he's been able to do that so seamlessly, really, I would imagine, is a tribute both to him and to you all.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's been huge for him, and he respects our players a lot. We had to guard him for several years, and that wasn't a lot of fun. And our kids understand that. And but our guys have been great. Our returning guys have been great. They're competitors. They're winners in everything they do. They're winners when they walk our classroom. I mean, we have a GPA of 3.6 roughly. They were very willing to add Grayson to the mix, and it's been really fun. It's hard for me right now because I have my concerns about our basketball team, and so we're trying to push to get better and better and better, because we're not clicking on all cylinders with some things, and it's hard for me to realize that that I'm not going to have many teams like this. They are talented, but the way they get along and the way they want to succeed and how much they're trying to listen, to me, it's making it a lot of fun.
Coach, I got to ask you, while we're talking about Grayson, you gave some stats, and really what kind of my ears perked up, the volume of shots. I'm used to seeing him, throw up 30 or 30 plus shots in a Summertown uniform, but it seems like, is that a function of him just being more efficient at the moment, or is that something that you guys actively are working on with him? Hey, look around. You don't necessarily have to shoot it 30 times a game. I guess I'm curious which may be more of the case is that with him.
Yeah. Some of it is us being real vanilla right now offensively. Most of it, to be honest with you, is he's a gifted passer. He can pass the basketball. So our big thing is no different with him than with every other player we have, is that's decision making. Are you making the proper decisions with the ball, whether that's scoring it or passing it, or, just moving the ball along or whatever. So, we don't try to get in the weeds too much of it to complicate things. We're pretty much just playing basketball. So it comes down on the offensive end to decision making. And we've never had players that shoot high volumes of shots. I mean, it's never happened. And, it's really been zero issue, and that's a credit to Grayson and our teammates, and he respects our guys.
And while we're talking those other teammates, it feels like Case and Bowie has been in a Loretto uniform for decades at this point. A lot of these guys feel like they've been in uniforms. They've played so many games at such a young age. I guess I am curious. Speak to the talent level and just speak to the quality of guys that you have on the rest of your roster outside of Grayson Burleson.
Yeah. Case and Bowie, he's now grown to 6'9". He's got his weight back. Last year he had mono. Start of the year, missed some games, and then it's really hard to work your way back when you're in the grind of a season. Couldn't gain his weight back. He's off to a phenomenal start. He's really he's gotten more athletic. He's guarding people really well. UT Southern's offered him. I think they're glad that he hasn't been super healthy his high school career, and that he doesn't play travel basketball, because really nobody to this point knows about him, and not many people can do what he can do on the floor when he's healthy at 6'9". Corbin Reynolds and him, he's averaging 5.7 assists, and he's averaging 0.8 turnovers. That's a pretty good ratio. He never turns the thing. I take that. He never turns it over. He's becoming a stud on the defensive end. He's pushing 6'3" now, so he's grown up. These guys are, he started since he was a freshman. Mason Tidwell, really good player, off to a slow start shooting the basketball, as all of our guys are. But that'll come around. He's nearing the 1,000-point mark, as is Bowie. Really good kid, really good player. Now he's 6'3" to 6'4", 210 pounds. He's grown up. Jackson Robertson, he's another kid that's a senior for us. He's had a 30-point game in his high school career, as has Bowie, as has Mason, as has Grayson. He's off to a really good start. And what I'm proud with Jackson is this is the best he's ever bought into a role of doing some really good things for us. He missed school Monday, and he was under the weather Tuesday. He gave it a go. It was probably his worst game, but we're going to give him a pass since he was sick and he's played so well the previous 4 games. One kid off the bench that's playing exceptional for us is a junior, Kylan Wilkerson, fantastic athlete. He's almost 6 foot, maybe a little bit longer than that, taller than that, but shooting over 40% from 3 and becoming a real dynamic defender. He's a guard, and he had 8 rebounds at the half other night against Lawrence County. He's really become a 6th starter for us, and really shooting the ball well. He's really the only one that we have shooting the ball well right now. I mean, it's abysmal. It's as bad as I've ever seen. And the good thing is, we know we need to work on it. and our guys are willing to work at it. And you look at our stat sheet, rebounding, value in the ball, assists, turnovers. Everything we're doing on the defensive end has been really good, but our shooting is poor. So we've got to put a lot of time in on that.
Coach, I don't know that a lot of AA programs want to hear the fact that you're undefeated and you're not shooting the ball very well right now. If I'm being honest with you.
I hope it's 5 games in, but I mean, I've got some stats to back it up. I mean, we're shooting 13% from 3, and we're shooting 43% from the free throw line. That's not going to get it done, and we've got guys that, have made 40, 53s and, in that locker room. So that will get better. And I'm glad it's happening right now because we know that it needs to be a priority, and we'll be making time extra after practice today. Once the calendar turns, we're going to, come in. We never come in on Sundays, but we're going to start coming in for an hour to get extra shots for those guys that need to get in, and our guys want to do that. So we got to get the rim a little bit bigger for us. We got to get some mojo going on that end. But it'll happen because these guys, everything they focused on in any sport that they do, when it becomes an emphasis, they manage to make good with it.
Absolutely. That was my point is I think some teams were scared that you're winning games right now by not shooting the ball well. So I would be if I was a head coach getting ready to play you guys. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, as long as when they start flowing, as long as we're doing what we're doing on the other end. So
yeah.
But you're right.
Greg Tips, Loretto boys basketball coach, joining us here on Main Street Sports today on Coach's Corner. And Greg, I was going to ask you, when you mentioned that you had some concerns about your team, what those concerns were. I guess we just figured it out. Putting the ball in the hole is something that's.
I'll be honest with you, that wasn't a concern coming in. We've got scores, and I see them shoot it in practice. My concern coming in was, would they buy into defense and rebounding? Did they think we had so many scores that wasn't a necessity? And I think that's why I'm so impressed with this basketball team, is that they're so locked in at times defensively and rebounding. And I hope that continues, and shots will go in or they won't go in. I like our shooters a lot, but it hadn't happened in a ball game yet.
Coach, looking through the guys that are getting time for you right now, a lot of multi-sport athletes, and you mentioned whatever sport they are in, they have really done well at it. At a small school as a coach, I guess you get used to kind of having to share guys, but when you get as many guys out of football specifically as you have gotten, does that play a role in the slow start from a shooting standpoint, maybe?
I think there's no doubt. The conditioning level's totally different. It takes a little while. So that don't mean we're not going to address it. I'm not a very patient individual when it comes to things like that. But that's why there's we're 5 games in, and a month ago a lot of these guys were suiting up for or had just gotten done with football, so they'll figure it out. I think the same thing happens in baseball. They get so many of our guys, it takes them a little bit of time to get going. They'll lose some games maybe in late March or early April, and then our baseball team usually don't lose a lot of games after that.
So y'all have kind of figured that part of it out a little bit.
Right. It is challenging as a basketball coach to have so many guys that are not just 2 sports, but 3 sports. It's challenging. We talked about it yesterday. Our physicalness, our competitive demeanor, our coachability, them understanding that we have to be great on the defensive end and we have to value the ball. They're an A+ time. But we are trying to win a basketball state championship, and with that you have to have skill, and it's a skill sport, and so we have the will for the most part. We've got to keep working on our skill, and that's the one challenging part. But we're sitting here in the early part of December, tournaments don't start till the end of February. So as long as their mindset's there and their wheels there, we'll work the rest out.
Greg Tips, Loretto boys basketball coach. The Mustangs picked up a state title back in 2018, looking for another one. And, obviously it's not a popularity contest, but again, it feels like, I don't want to put any pressure on you, but just perception publicly is it would almost be an underachievement if y'all do anything less than that. But again, no pressure.
Yeah, well, I don't listen to that because a lot of those people that are talking to you probably haven't watched Memphis Fairleigh play. I have. They probably haven't watched Alcoa play and who the transfer they got in. They haven't watched that. And then I tell you, we have a lot of capable teams in our area. Hickman County's got a lot back off a state tournament team last year. Cannon County's got a lot back. I love the way Summertown's playing with the way they're shooting the basketball exceptionally well. Lewis County had a young basketball team last year. And then Mount Pleasant is really, I like their basketball team too. So, people talk, but that don't mean I have to listen to it.
It's funny, 3 of the teams that you mentioned are right there in your district. And so it's going to be a fun district race then, huh?
Yeah, we need a strong district. In 2018, when we won it, our district was absolutely loaded. The best I'd ever seen it. In 2020, we had won 22 games in a row going into Murfreesboro, and we got canceled because of COVID. Our district was strong that year. I think this year our district is back to a really good place with where Lewis and Summertown and Mount Pleasant are. So that's going to challenge us. I think it's hard to win a state championship if you aren't challenged during the course of the year. And then we try to add to that. We're going to Gatlinburg, play some really strong teams, some bigger schools. And then we got Stone Memorial this weekend, who's got a 31 point per game score with Stone. And then they got a transfer in also, who's a really nice player. They're 8-1, beat an undefeated Piggott County team other night by 25 or 26. So we've got a challenge this Saturday, and really looking forward to it.
Great. Greg Tips, we appreciate you taking some time with us here on Coach's Corner, presented by Tin Pin Alley Eat Play Party. I'm sure we'll be talking.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all having me, Mo. I'm going to make it. I've talked to you a few times, but I do want to make the public aware that you did not send me a congratulations text when the Dodgers won the World Series.
No, I did not.
I never heard from you.
No. And
did you get a lot of those, Coach? I mean,
I didn't, but I was hoping, Mo would send me one. I know how much he loves baseball. Mo, we're going to try to do it again this next October. So don't leave me hanging if we get another one.
I'm going to let you and Pernell Knox, the athletics director over at Columbia Academy, have that conversation. Y'all are both huge Dodgers fans, and I'm just going to go cry.
We may need to get together and watch that game, and maybe you can buy us pizza or something. We'll watch it. We'll watch the World Series. Do that.
I will talk to you later.
All right, man. See y'all. Thanks.
See ya.
Thanks, Greg. Hey, before we wrap up this segment, we need to give out some hardware. Let's start with our Custom Stone Handlers Team of the Week. Besides the military, there is no greater team building exercise than athletics. Custom Stone Handlers invites you to get in the game. Our Custom Stone Handlers End-to-Win Life Team of the Week is the Independence boys basketball team. Went 2-0 this past week with a 47-41 overtime victory over Laverne and a big 68-47 win against a really good Hillsborough team as well. So a couple of big wins for the Eagles last week. Our Custom Stone Handlers End-to-Win Life Team of the Week. Our Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia Athlete of the Week is Columbia Academy senior Harrison Brownlee, who in CA state championship game last week, obviously, unfortunately, a 49-21 loss to Nashville Christian, caught 6 passes for 96 yards, rushed for 17 yards on 5 carries, scored all 3 CA touchdowns in that loss. Defensively added 8 tackles and a pass breakup. And then the next night scored a basket in Columbia Academy's first win of the season against Middle Tennessee Christian. So, yeah, I asked him after the ball game, so are you going to play tomorrow night? He's like, probably so. So, yeah. Harrison Brownlee, a man for all seasons for Columbia Academy, our Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia Athlete of the Week. Let's take a break here on Main Street Sports today. When we come back, let's talk a little pro football. Stay tuned.
Do you want to be a bad man? Yes, you do. Do you want to taste sweet salvation underneath the summer moon? Do you need another hand now? Yes, you do. Go see Miss Josie down on Columbus Avenue. All right, Columbus Avenue.
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
So Busy Bee is a very close-knit family. We fight just like every family does. We have arguments, but we always come out with a solution to the problems. We don't just fight about what we want, we fight about what customers need. We want to make sure that every customer we go to is more than satisfied. And that doesn't just start whenever we show up at their door, that starts when we show up every day at work. We want to make sure that we are serving our customers to the best of our ability.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com. Throwback Thursday continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. At the top of the hour, we will be throwing it back to a prior conversation that we had with Union University women's basketball coach and athletics director Mark Campbell in anticipation of his induction into the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame this summer. Big news for the Jackson, Tennessee coach and AD, and we'll be discussing that again in a segment at the top of the hour. Right now, though, let's take a look at some professional football activity as Big NFC West game tonight in a tightly bunched division. We've got the Rams coming off that big 44-42 win against Buffalo, traveling to San Francisco, taking on the 49ers, the injury-plagued 49ers. Rams coming in at 7-6, 49ers 6-7. San Francisco with a big win this weekend as well, beating Chicago, which is what they were supposed to do. But with Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, and Jordan Mason all on injured reserve for the 49ers, it kind of cuts into their depth, among other things, for this one. What are your thoughts on this ball game, Wade?
I think it's going to be a fun game in the sense that either one of these teams could win. As banged up and bruised as the 49ers are, the Rams at times have been equally banged up and bruised, and both teams at this point, at various points this season, have shown they can beat darn near anybody, and both teams have shown that they could fall flat on their face to anybody. The urgency is real for both teams, and kind of depending on how the rest of the week plays out. The Seahawks, it sounds like, obviously they're sitting there in pretty good position, but they might be rooting for the 49ers to kind of help solidify some tiebreaker scenarios and some other situations. So the folks in Seattle, it sounds like, will be rooting for San Fran tonight. I'm anticipating a pretty fun game. I think it's going to be kind of a revert. I don't know that we're going to get as lucky as we got the last couple of Thursdays. I think this one will be kind of yucky, kind of gross. But that's kind of how these teams have been all year. They've kind of been putting Band-Aids on their team as much as they can all year. And I think it'll be entertaining, but in an ugly fashion tonight.
Yeah, a 49er win does kind of help Seattle open that gap a little bit. The Seahawks sitting atop the division at 8-5. Again, the Rams at 6-7, and then the Cardinals and Niners both sitting there at 7-6. So 2 games separating first and fourth place in this division. But a 49er win really kind of helps the Seahawks out a lot. But it's one of those situations where you just don't feel like you can count Matthew Stafford out. And the way he played, the way they played this past weekend against Buffalo, maybe they are, starting to get past some of their early injuries. It feels like the difference is the Rams were beat up early and are getting guys back, and the 49ers are kind of dealing with some midseason injuries that may kind of impact them down the stretch here.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Rams, they got the 49ers on the road tonight. They got to go to the Jets, which could be in full-blown fire sale mode next week. But then they close with 2 home games versus the Cardinals and the Seahawks. So if you're the Rams, you're sitting there thinking, we're in pretty good shape going forward if you can take care of business tonight. And you're right, this has been such a congested division. It's similar to the NFC North in the sense that there's 3 teams, 4 in this case, I guess. This count the Bears out from the NFC North. We think of the NFC North as this great, highly competitive division, but with elite talent and teams. The NFC West this year has kind of been the opposite. It is highly competitive, and it has been a lot of fun, but it's been a lot of up and down. And just a couple of weeks ago, Seattle looked left for dead in that division. Looked like Arizona was going to run away with it, and then Arizona has had some real ugly play down the stretch. They should have beat the Vikings 2 weeks ago. Don't know what happened to them versus the Seahawks this past weekend, but Arizona feels like they are floundering when it was theirs for the taking. So I really don't know. I've kind of given up all hope on trying to forecast this division. It still feels like the Seahawks are probably going to see this thing out. But tonight, obviously, will go a long way toward getting us a clearer picture.
Absolutely. Wade, you on more than one occasion have called the Cleveland Browns an unserious franchise, and it's tough to disagree with your assessment. And it's tougher when you read a headline, Browns owner Jimmy Haslam non-committal on Deshaun Watson's future with the team. Quote, "We will look at everything. Cleveland may decide to move on from Watson, who is under contract through 2026. Now, I can see why you might not want to walk away from a $230 contract that you are in because it's going to cost you a bunch. But how much is bringing him back going to cost you? He was 1-6 when he went out with a season-ending injury and was playing abysmally in the process. 5 touchdown passes in 7 games for Cleveland before a season-ending injury. So again, what's it take for them to step away from Deshaun Watson?
Yeah, I see this headline, and if you're Jimmy Haslam, yeah, I bet you are looking at everything because you're really backed into a corner here. The frustrating thing is Watson was not playing great. Then he gets injured. He's coming back from an injury, and he's not playing great. Then he has another injury. It just feels like, based on what we've saw the first 6 weeks of the season, and then also coming back from 2 different season-ending injuries. I mean, if he were to somehow turn it around and even get close to the form of the Deshaun Watson of old, it would be one of the most remarkable comebacks in a long time. But it just feels like Cleveland is really backs up against the wall here. And, I bet they are willing to look at everything because on paper that contract is obviously looking, some folks are calling it maybe one of the worst deals in the history of the league. I don't know that I'm prepared to go that far, but man, they are really boxed into a corner with not a lot of leverage any direction.
Yeah. It feels like Philadelphia is kind of setting the excuses for an implosion that may or may not take place. Philadelphia's 11-2 coming into this weekend, but there's a lot of anti-Jalen Hurts talk, and apparently some of it is coming from right there in the locker room, specifically from one of its receivers, specifically former Titans receiver A.J. Brown.
I'm shocked and floored that A.J. Brown has something to say to the media. I tell you that much. But this is wild, right? I mean, the Eagles have won 9 in a row. Earlier this year, we thought Sirianni was a dead man walking. He's talking, he's chirping with fans. Their woes in the first quarter, the first half have been well documented this year. But then somehow, some way, all they've done is rattle off 9 wins. And if Detroit ever just blinks in this staring contest, it feels like the Eagles are there to swoop in and get the 1 seed. So then you add a little extra drama, a little subplot there with A.J. Brown and with Hurts. I did listen to some funny clips of some of the Eagles fans, leaving the stadium the other night when they quote unquote barely beat a suddenly randomly much improved Panthers team who maybe should have won that game. So I get it a little bit, but their comments were crazy. I was listening to the audio and they're ranging from Hurts is stealing all of the shine now for Saquon Barkley, or why don't we run the ball more? And now we're hearing, why don't we throw the ball more? So, I mean, for a team that has won 9 games in a row and a team that is 1 win away or 1 loss away from the Lions of being there in the 1 seed, it feels oddly dysfunctional. But then again, it is Philadelphia, so maybe we shouldn't be surprised by any of that.
One of 3 NFC teams with double-digit victories. Like you said, the Lions are at 12-1, Philadelphia and Minnesota each at 11-2, and everybody else is 9-4 or worse. So the Eagles are in the midst, like you said, of a fantastic season, and yet it's not enough. You've got Saquon Barkley, who has really taken some pressure off of Hurts here over the course of this win streak, but it's Philadelphia, and I guess maybe that explains everything. But you've got some dysfunction, either rearing its ugly head or being poised to do so. Stay tuned.
Yeah, I know some fantasy owners are frustrated because whether you got Hurts or whether you got Barkley, there's some grumblings, that Hurts, the tush push is as effective and a bit of a comeback, if you will, that it has made this season as it's gone on. Feels like maybe some of those touchdowns should be going to Barkley. You're talking about a guy that feels like it's Josh Allen's to lose at this point, but he might be potentially your MVP. But Hurts is kind of stealing some it's just so funny, right? There's a team out there that is battling for the 1 seed. But if you stripped away the record, you would think they were battling for one of the worst records in the league, as kind of many random weird subplots and stories this team and this franchise has had this year.
It's crazy. Our number one here on Throwback Thursday of Main Street Sports Today is in the books. When we return for hour number two, we will throw it back to our recent conversation with Union University women's basketball coach Mark Campbell. Stay tuned for that when we come back to the Lee Company studios after this.
Nashville's Nutcracker returns to TPAC this December, presented by Nashville Ballet. This holiday season, audiences will journey with Clara and the Nutcracker Prince through Nashville's history and the land of sweets. Tickets at NashvilleBallet.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Vilay Saisuka, CEO and founder of Premier Foot and Ankle Centers of Tennessee here in Murfreesboro. We offer foot and ankle care from ingrown toenails to diabetic foot wounds. We also fix ankle fractures and things like that.
Call us today to schedule an appointment. We look forward to seeing you.
Because here at Premier Foot and Ankle, we believe that
the journey begins with happy feet.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Pleased to be joined now. Speaking of assists, pleased to be joined by one of the top assist guys in Lipscomb University history, among other things. Also 700 plus game winner, Mark Campbell. I just went blank. The women's coach at Union University, who was just honored or just announced over the weekend as a 2025 inductee into the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. Coach, congratulations, first of all. I saw this as I was pulling up at a high school football playoff game on Friday night, and I was just so excited for you, man. This is well-deserved, and it's just nice to, have even a small personal connection with somebody being recognized like that. So again, congratulations, and thank you for taking some time with us today.
Well, thanks, Maurice. It's been a long time, man. We've have an article in my attic. I know that's not the greatest way to attribute something to you, but I think you did an article on me and John Pierce, both of us, a long time ago in high school, and have it framed. So my mom made it for me. So I appreciate you having me on, and honored about the award. Really just excited for the Jackson Union University community, which I've spent all my life being a part of.
You're going to be going in June with players like Alana Beard, who starred at Duke, Sue Bird, Sylvia Fowles, Cappy Pondexter. Saw them all play at the collegiate and at the professional level. You and Lucille Cavalos are going in as coaches, and WBCA Executive Director Danielle Donahue also being inducted. I mean, that's a class, man. To be mentioned with those type luminaries in this sport got to be pretty special for you.
Yeah, just, I think sometimes when you're, my Coach Meyer made us write down our perfect life in 1992. I still have a copy of it. And I think one of the things that highlighted on that for me was to be able to be at the same place my entire life. And God's just been really graceful, allowing that to happen, to be in a place where mission is of the utmost importance, and to be able to use basketball in that way has been really something there's no price tag on that. And to be able to raise my family here, get married here, all those things, just overwhelmed a little bit that will be possible, to be at the same place and to be able to be a part of something like that. Community is really important. It's important in God's word, and to be able to live that out from a basketball sense is pretty cool. So overwhelmed, very grateful, and I appreciate again you having me on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. 26 seasons at Union University, 745 victories as of right now, I believe, after opening the season 3-1. 4 national titles at the NAIA level, 12 Gulf South, either regular season or tournament championships since making the move to NCAA Division II. Having that kind of success is, well, one, that's how you get into the Hall of Fame. But is there anything in particular that you attribute that to at a school like a Union?
Yeah, and they were really good before I got here, man. David Blackstock was the coach.
Did double duty, because he was also the baseball coach for a long time.
Coach Blackstock has coached baseball, basketball, and softball while he was here. His wife and his daughter still sit right behind me when I coach every home game. They love women's basketball here. I think there's a lot of things that go into success. Expectations is a big part of that there's an expectation here that you just don't lose games. And kind of like it was when we were at Lipscomb back in the 80s and 90s. And so I think expectation drives that. But I think more than that is that there is a character about this place that attracts people of character. We've had really great high school coaches in West Tennessee that we were able to pull talent from. Those high school coaches taught fundamentals. They taught team. Those young ladies were responsible for communities on a Friday night and the emotions of the weekend. And for them to be able to come here and give those same gifts away and those same expectations allows for you a chance to be excellent. Obviously, we've had great players and great assistant coaches, and then obviously the administration here does everything they can to help us.
Wade, you're on mute.
That was tragic. There we go. Thank you, Coach. I wanted to say, Coach Campbell, thanks for joining us. But I also what can you tell me about the night of November 5th, 1999, when you got your first career win versus Tougaloo? We've come a long way since then, but I'm curious, what do you remember, if anything, about that first win? And then how have you've certainly had a lot in between. What have you learned along the way?
I think I definitely remember that night and how nervous I was. I talked to one of my friends who coached his first game as a head coach in the last couple of weeks. I remember feeling that way about it. I think he was playing one of the best teams in the country, and I was playing Tougaloo at the time, and it didn't matter. I mean, there's a ton of expectation at Union, and so I felt a lot of nerves. I think what I've learned is that no one remembers. I think many of my goals that I set as a coach, God's given, some grace to be able to experience. And there is no comparison, guys. And again, this might not be the answer you want, but community, great relationships. Any success you have in this world is going to fall short. And for me, what I've learned is that Jesus is the only answer. And so I'm not sure you were looking for that answer, but for me, I think faith has been a big part of why I do what I do. And every single time that I've left my why in doing it, it's never satisfied. And so from that first win to winning on Friday night, the reason why I do it has changed literally. Instead of just me saying that I want to make a difference in people's lives, the idea that people make a difference in mine, my own players do, and I'm not sure that I allowed that early on. But the whole experience from start to finish relationally with my players, with my coaches in this community is the reason why I've stayed, and it's really the reason why I do what I do. And I think there's lots of people on our campus that feel the same way about their jobs as well, as this is a community on mission, and it feels like we're connected. The same things I want my team to feel when they play. I feel like our community here at Union is really connected, whether it's in a history classroom or in the music or even in our administration.
And you kind of touched on it as well. Having transitioned now also, in addition to your basketball role, serving as director of athletics, is that something that you feel like you were maybe ready for earlier, or do you feel like, hey, you were put in that role at the right place? Because it sounds like you walked through a lot of great leadership stuff right there.
Yeah, I think that what I've learned is the fun and enjoyment of putting a team together and everybody being on the same page, whether they're from different backgrounds, socioeconomic, race. Just to be able to put those people together and us being about one thing. And so my wife and I spent some time praying. I've worked for two really, really good athletic directors that really cared about us over my 31 years here. And so the last 2 years, this is my second year to do both. It's been challenging, just trying to do everything well. I think it's really hard to do both things with excellence, but stepping into something where I didn't realize how selfish I was as a women's basketball coach. And what I've learned is every coach is responsible for its little sphere, but trying to get everybody on the same page is really hard. And so, but I love this place. I love our mission. And ultimately, our goal here is not only to be successful in the field, but to use that to build great relationships and to watch God change hearts in the midst of using athletics well instead of allowing athletics to use us.
Mark Campbell, women's basketball coach at Union University in Jackson, joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Again, so much success. Quickest coach in women's basketball to 500 wins, 600 wins, 700 wins. And, basically you just kind of said it kind of takes a village to some degree, just the community support and that kind of thing. But when you transition from coaching men's basketball, you played, obviously, you were an assistant with Ralph Turner when you first went to Union. What was your mindset about taking the women's basketball program, particularly taking it from a legend like David Blackstock, like you said?
Yeah, I think at every major transition in my life, God's been really clear. And so after praying, and my wife and I we had just been married 1 year at that point in time, and just kind of step in. I remember talking to Coach Meyer about that as well. And obviously Coach Turner, who's had a big impact on where I am today because he allowed me to be his assistant here. But what I learned, as a result of this was high school basketball girls is at 6, which means I get to put my kids to bed at 8:30. And my wife can get a lot more involved in females in college than she could have if I was the men's coach. It allowed for my wife and I to develop rhythms at night where we just spent time together once the kids were going to bed instead of being out late. at a recruiting event and having to go to sleep when I get home. And so there were so many, again, graces in all of it. But one thing I've enjoyed is I think there's a relational piece to coaching women where they love being a part of a group and love being trusted and cared for. And so I've loved that piece of it. There's not as much pride and ego, and I would know because I'm a guy. And so that transition has been really, really great. You know, I wouldn't say I'd never coach guys again, but I would say that it's really been a joy of my life to be able to coach females, watch them want to be a part of a group and watch them excel.
You know,
Coach,
you say that. Oh, go ahead, Wade.
I was just going to ask Coach, you know, I'm always fascinated by coaches that have done this for so long. Does your routine in the off season change at all as you've kind of matured, especially having some new roles? Do you keep things kind of the same? I guess I'm curious, you know, how do you kind of find that fire or that intensity? I think I kind of know the answer already based on talking to you a little bit, but I'm curious, you know, how do you get ready? You're already 4 games into this season, plus all the camps and practices and whatnot. How do you kind of refill that bucket, so to speak, every year?
Yeah, I think there's, you know, rhythms are really important in life and in every way. And so, you know, I think when marriage is important and family is important, faith is important, you know, I think everything kind of overflows from what you believe and why you do things. And so for me, it's always been great during the summer and even late spring is to, you know, I don't watch basketball or think about basketball during June and July. Not much. I mean, I'll go recruiting when we have the events we go to, but I really don't fill my mind with it. I mean, to be honest with you, my wife, when in 2007, she was had a friend that she was doing a wedding for. And I remember thinking, man, my wife is just not here. I just don't sense her spirit. Like she seems distant. And I asked her about it and she said, this is how I feel during basketball season. And that day I moved out every single thing that was basketball in my house, except for the clothes I wear to school that say Union on them. And I promised her I wouldn't ever do any film or anything at home. And that really changed the trajectory of the priorities and making sure my mind was free at home. And I think that has allowed me to, when we start up in August, to really be energized and ready to go again. To see things as they are and not out of whack a little bit. And so, I mean, we start the year every year with our team going to a graveyard. And when you look at those tombstones, there's nothing on those tombstones that said what people did while they were here. It's very few. It said the date in which they were born, the date in which they entered death. And so the idea is what's going to be remembered. And so we want to live towards 4 things. And I've always said this over the last 4 or 5 years, 99.9% of life will not be lived here based on what I believe. And so let's live for the 0.00001. And if that's true, then we want to treat people really well. We want to be excellent in everything we do. Community is super important because those are the guardrails for life. And so if you ask me what energizes me, always why. And there's things I don't like as I get older, as things change, but I think you always have to change with the kids, with the atmospheres and athletics. It's always a matter of changing and keeping up with. But ultimately, it comes down to relationships. Am I trusted? Am I cared for? Do I feel loved? And because we were all created to want those things. And so can we provide an atmosphere here in our basketball program and our athletic department where those things are true?
Love it.
Mark, you said that you always wanted to spend your entire coaching career in one place, and it seems that you are well on your way to doing exactly that, taking on the AD role in addition to women's basketball. I'm sure you had opportunities to do something else. I mean, was that ever debated for you? Was that ever a thought that you had to struggle with? You know, is there something out here more than this?
Yeah, I think there's several times that my wife and I prayed seriously about whether this is a move to make. And I think the question that always came up was because that I've been allowed to experience winning my last game pretty early on, I already knew it didn't satisfy. And so therefore, when the decisions came up, the decision was, am I willing to give up the most important things to go after something I knew didn't satisfy? And so it always came back to, do I really want to put work above my marriage? Do I want to put work above being with my kids? Do I want to chase something I know is not going to satisfy, when I think we can dig deep roots and be known by people and make a difference where we are? I mean, Coach Meyer made us read a book by a guy named Frosty in college. It said, make the big time where you are.
Yeah.
And I remember that title. I don't remember much about the book. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. But it's always been really important to me that, we look at the place we are, do the very best job we can, know our why really well, and then make some discernments, not on what the world says success is, but what God's word says it is, and just relationships in general.
Mark, you, not in this last response, but in a response to something that Wade asked you just a second ago, you were talking about the atmosphere that we're in. In the current climate of collegiate athletics with NIL and transfer portal and that kind of thing, coaching at the Division II level, how much of that do you find yourself, dealing with? How much of that do you find yourself saying, I'm not going to deal with that? What is your approach to a lot of that stuff?
Well, again, I'm going to start off with, there are people with character everywhere. And just because the age is changing of athletics and how we define I'm not sure we can define it as amateur anymore. But it hasn't touched women's basketball here at Union much. We have gotten some really quality people off the portal that fit in what we're doing. We've had up to this point, not one person that's left because they were unhappy here and wanted to get on the portal. But I think the men's sports are dealing with that a lot more than we are. NIL, I think ultimately this is going to filter down at some point. But I think you think one day at a time, and the destruction of everything I know to be good is the love of self. And every decision I've made in my life that's bad is because of that. And most of the ways I've been hurt are because of that. And so I think trying to find people that don't love themselves as much as they love being part of a group and having relationships with people. And you understand, I'm not saying love yourself in the sense of not loving how God made you, but just choosing you over everybody else. That's the opposite of the type of team I want to have. And I would say that's the opposite of what most people's teams they want. And so I think it's bound to happen, Maurice. I'm not sure that we get a picture of that in women's basketball here, but it's definitely affected our men's basketball program. It's affected other men's programs. I saw a study a couple of years ago, don't even know where it is, and so don't hold me to the accuracy exactly, but 88% of women in the portal were because of relationships, and 82% of men in the portal were because they just think they're better. And all of us as men, we know this about ourselves. And so I think as a program that really takes relationships seriously, and we want to win, we want to be excellent, that we can take advantage of that in the portal because we're trying to be elite relationally. But I'm not sure you can fight against, hey, I think I'm better. That's a hard one to fight against.
Yeah, ego makes it tough, Coach.
Yeah, I can attest to it in me. So yes.
745 wins in 26 seasons, a winning percentage of 87. Mark, do you ever think about, and again, will the transition from not coaching be easier now that you've got this other thing over here of athletic director, or is that something that you consider at this point?
Yeah, I mean, again, I can't imagine what it'd be like not coaching. I mean, I can't imagine what that is. Wouldn't call that retirement. I think the idea is what I've enjoyed is being involved in young people's lives, trying to figure out how to encourage them. You know, a lot of people, we learned this in a book we're reading through with our team right now, that artificial maturity comes without experience. It's just a bunch of knowledge. And the idea of being mature is that you have a ton of experiences. And as we get older, we tend to keep those to ourselves. And that's the fun part about coaching, is to be able to share experiences and what you've learned, so that maybe some people don't have to go through the same things that you did. And so I'll be wherever I can do those things really well for as long as I possibly can, because that reminds me of my need for the Lord on a daily basis. And it makes me, I'm just participating in his story. And the older I get, that's it. Can I participate in his story, doing whatever I'm asked to do at any particular time?
Mark Campbell, women's basketball coach at Union University, 2025 inductee into the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. That will take place in June at the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame over in Knoxville. And Mark, congratulations to you, man. And again, just anybody that wonders if you've done this thing the right way, all they got to do is go back and listen to this. It'll be available on YouTube, among other places, but really happy for you. And if the article is in the attic, that's just fine. As long as you know where it is, man, that's
Yeah,
that's
no, I
heartwarming
didn't mean
to
that
me.
disrespect. You know, at some point
No,
in time,
none taken.
You're not going to put up anything from high school in your house. That's a little egotistical, right? We got that ego we were talking about. So if I have a room for my high school trophies, you might want to come and intervene.
Understood completely and totally agree. Mark, again, congratulations and good luck this season.
Hey, thanks, Maurice. Appreciate you guys. Have a good year.
Thank you, Mark.
Hi, I'm Riley, a certified physician associate here at Premier Foot and Ankle Centers of Tennessee. We have a couple locations, Murfreesboro, McMinnville, as well as Franklin. We treat people of all ages. We're excited to get you back on your feet and hope we can help you today.
Call us today to schedule an appointment. We look forward to seeing you.
Because here at Premier Foot and Ankle, we believe that
the journey begins with happy feet.
He shoots, and he scores!
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Hey, welcome back to Throwback Thursday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. We're coming to you from the Lee Company Studios here in Columbia and in Pulaski, and we are glad to have with us now Tony SIRACUSA from The Last Word on Sports, because Tony covers a lot of Atlantic Coast Conference football, and right now, college football playoff be damned. The ACC seems to be the epicenter of college football for today, as North Carolina and Bill Belichick have had a press conference announcing the former taking the coaching position at the latter. Tony, thanks for joining us.
Guys, good to see you again. Wade, good to see you again, as always.
Absolutely.
You know, Tony, what is Mac Brown thinking right now?
Wow, that's a great question. Mac Brown has got to be saying, what did I do wrong to be forced out the door? Mac was in his second stint at UNC, was 44-33 in his second run, was only 3-5 in conference this year, but 6-6 overall, and they're going to be playing in a bowl game, and he's got to be asking, why me? Hey, look, Bill Belichick is only a year younger than Mac was when Mac was fired. And that was always given as part of the reason for the need for a change in an era of NIL and the portal and all of these things, that we need to move forward. We need a forward-thinking coach. To be clear, Mac was never opposed to players getting paid. He was never opposed to players being able to move. He didn't necessarily like the way the system was working, and he would often talk about that, but he was fine with the concept. So now they've hired a coach who is only a year younger than Mac was, who has zero college coaching experience. Yeah, exactly. They hired a name. It's a high risk hire. They're hoping it's a high reward hire. That is yet to be seen. And boy, I mean, I've got I guess as a journalist, I'm naturally skeptic. I'm skeptical anyway. My cynicism is running pretty high on this one.
Rightfully so, I think. I mean, you hit on all of it. Bill Belichick has never coached at the collegiate level.
Right.
He's 72 years old. So, I mean, there's certainly a shelf life that you're dealing with in this whole situation.
Yeah.
He signed a 5-year, $50 million deal, apparently. But, how are you better today than you were 2 weeks ago if you're Carolina?
Wow, that's a great question. Again, I'm not sure you are. You've got a brand name, I suppose, at the head of your coaching for football. They've had one player who withdrew from the portal. The offensive lineman Aiden Banfield withdrew his name from the portal today as it became official. I don't know if other players will. UNC has 11 players currently in the transfer portal. And I'm not sure that this turns some magical key, because you look at what's critical in college football right now, and that is being the kind of general manager, kind of head coach. They're bringing in Mike Lombardi, the very experienced NFL executive, to be a GM, and that's a new thing that we're seeing in college sports, particularly college football, is the hiring of a general manager, because we've got revenue sharing that's going to be coming up next year, and so you're bringing in people who are going to manage the revenue sharing and the portal and what is essentially your salary cap that goes with the revenue sharing. They're going to handle all of those things. They're bringing in an NFL coach who theoretically understands all of these concepts as well. but they understand it within the constraints of, well, this guy's under contract. This player is under contract for X amount of years at X amount of money. And, this is how that works. This is different when a player can come and go every year and leave on a whim for the portal. So I think it's really different. And I think they're relying very heavily on the name brand and what that's going to bring in terms of recruiting. But I would say this real quickly also, because we've all seen Bill Belichick. We've seen him coach. We've seen him in the post-game press conferences. This is a guy who really likes coaching, but seems to have a certain disdain for people, for the glad talk, for the glad handing, right? That's a huge part of what a college coach has to do now. Those booster events, those events where you're asking for money for the collective, where technically you can't work with the local businesses for the name, image, and likeness that goes to your athletes, but there's a little bit of that goes on. But really with the collective and that fundraising that goes on to help pay for your programs. And boy, does anyone imagine Bill Belichick really enjoying going and doing those things?
Tough for me to imagine. And I'm like Mo has mentioned earlier, Tony, I'm certainly fascinated by this. I will give full disclosure. I did not go through all 400 pages of the Bible, supposedly, that Belichick either did or didn't write, depending on who you believe. But what I am curious about, though, is it seems like he's kind of been open and upfront about turning North Carolina kind of almost into a NFL factory, kind of that's his approach, right? And so I guess I'm curious, where does administration kind of land on this? Presumably, if you've got an NFL factory, it's going to be good enough to get you to a lot of wins and maybe get into the college football playoff. But I guess where I'm curious, where does the cohesion lie between administration hearing so much NFL preparation versus, hey, we still want to win championships and be competitive as well?
I'm not sure it does.
And send kids to class.
Right. Yeah, there is that. They are supposed to be, doing that whole
technically true
thing, right? I'm not sure that there is a cohesion. He denied today in his press conference that he turned in a 400-page manifesto of how this was supposed to work. But like you said, Wade, it's depending upon who you want to believe, because we've heard solid reports of what was in there. I think there is some fear and some trepidation within the ranks of some in the administration. This was really pushed through by John Pryor, a member of the Board of Trustees for the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. We're specific with that because the UNC system has a board of governors, but each university within the system has its own board of trustees. John Pryor was big on this. There was pushback. Our sources are good on this. There was pushback from Bubba Cunningham, the athletic director, who ultimately is responsible for the hire and who is his reputation, his job is going to rest on how well this goes. The fear from Cunningham was that Belichick was taking the bird in the hand. In other words, he didn't want to wait until Black Monday in the NFL in February when there's all the turnover in the coaching ranks, because he already got passed over when it came to that happening in 2023. There were no offers for him. Bill Belichick has burned a lot of bridges in the NFL. The concern was, is he taking this now, making sure that his son Steven is named the coach in waiting, the heir apparent in the contract. Steven is currently the defensive coordinator at the University of Washington, making sure that he is the next in line. And then Belichick winds up leaving for the NFL, whether in February or a year from now. And we've got his son, who really wasn't the focal point of this hiring process. There is a lot of concern. And I'm going to say, while they did a good job of sitting up at the dais today and answering all the questions and, presenting Belichick with a UNC sweatshirt with the sleeves cut, the hoodie with the sleeves cut and all those things, and it looks good. Behind the scenes, we factually know that there isn't a lot of cohesion.
It certainly seems like a classic power struggle in a sense between, athletic director, board of trustees, board of governors, kind of adding an extra component there. And I guess to your initial point, if North Carolina's goal was to go out and make a splash, it certainly seems like they've done that. I'm kind of going to wait and see, what happens in terms of on-field success. But I was intrigued. I will admit the NFL kind of factory angle, I could see that playing well, especially in the NIL/transfer portal era. I just don't know to what you just also mentioned. I just don't know how long Belichick's going to maybe be around to see all that, because I still feel like he's ready to bounce back to the NFL at a moment's notice, right?
I agree with a lot of what you said. You look, there in the past 72 hours, there have been some big coaching hires, right? Barry Odom goes to Purdue. Today, Dan Mullen came out of his forced retirement and is the new head coach at UNLV. Rich Rodriguez last night became the coach going back to West Virginia. And all of that is just in the dust because of what UNC pulled off, and which is what they wanted. They wanted the headlines. They wanted the splash. But I think you bring up something interesting, Wade, in that, the itch to go back to the NFL, and again, repeating, he's 72 years old. He knows that window is narrowing. The opportunity to go back and coach is narrowing. And so I don't know how long he's going to be there. And if you're a player who's looking at the NFL, wants to go to the NFL, that's great. You got a lot of programs. You've got a lot of colleges who do well putting players in the NFL. And sure, Belichick can come show you his 6 Super Bowl rings, but the last time he won a Super Bowl, most of these recruits were about 11 or 12 years old. They don't remember Belichick as well as, some of us older guys. His Patriots missed the playoffs 3 out of his last 4 years in New England. So I think the splash with a bunch of 18 and 19-year-olds is probably a little bit overplayed. Yeah. You can show the Super Bowl rings, but there are a lot of guys in the college coaching ranks who've got Super Bowl rings, either as an assistant or a player or whatever the case may be. And there are a lot of programs that have built their reputation based on not only winning at the college level, but what that means to the players at the next level. You've got the Alabamas and the Georgias and the Ohio States who succeed at this year after year after year.
Tony SIRACUSA with the last word on sports, joining us here on Main Street Sports today. And, you guys made a couple of points. One, as much as this feels like a forced marriage, maybe Bubba Cunningham sported a blazer with the sleeves cut off during the introductory press conference, mimicking Belichick's cut off hoodie.
Sure.
And, Belichick at the age of 72 was asked about his longevity in this position. And he says, I didn't come here to leave. Right. So if he leaves, it's a lie he told.
Right. But here's the thing. All coaches say that when they come in. I'm here for the long term. Well, sure. You're here for the long term until you're not. I'm here to build the program. Well, you're here to build the program until something else comes along. You don't sign a contract, and you certainly don't go in front of the media. And because of the magnitude of this hire, there was a lot of national media at this press conference. It wasn't just, the folks from the Triad or, North Carolina outlets. You're not going to go and say, well, we'll see how it goes. Well, I signed a 5-year deal at $10 million a year, but we'll see how it goes. You're going to go and you're going to talk about your long-term plans and how you're going to rebuild the program and things of that nature. Look, and you're doing so. Let's remember what North Carolina is first and foremost. It's a basketball school. Always will be. And yes, there are successes in the football program. They go to bowls repeatedly, although Mac Brown did not have a good record in his second stint going to the bowl games. I think he was 1-3, 1-4, something like that. But you go to the bowl games, you get that extra money. Are we now thinking that Bill Belichick is the guy who goes from taking us from the second tier bowl games to competing for the conference championship and a spot in the college football playoffs? Because that's a pretty massive leap to make in 1 or 2 years. much less, because we all assume that he's not going to be there for the full 5. So you look at 1, 2, maybe 3 years out. That's a really massive leap to make in that time span.
Yeah, and Wade and I were talking earlier in the week trying to figure out exactly where North Carolina kind of fits in the new ACC pecking order. Obviously, Clemson, SMU, Miami were your top 3 this season, but after that, where does North Carolina fit, and where can they get to?
It's a middle of the conference program right now. Maybe if you have 3 tiers, they're in that second tier, and maybe at the higher end of that second tier. But let's not lose the irony that North Carolina was one of the schools, one of the universities that voted against Cal, Stanford, and SMU coming into the conference. And SMU is basically carrying the conference's water right now, even though they lost the championship game. They've been the team at the forefront of the conference all year, and doing so for, really cheap, because they're not getting any of the TV revenue. They'll just get their share of the postseason revenue. It's ironic that the conference schools are going to make more money this year thanks to SMU. So but right now it's a middle of the pack program. It is. They've had quarterback issues. They've had on-field issues with performance. I mean, no one's going to forget the 70-50 loss to James Madison, earlier in the year. That's going to weigh on Mac's legacy for a long time to come. But it's interesting because Mac's going to the College Football Hall of Fame someday. He is. He's a national championship coach. He's lasted a long time, and he's being replaced by a guy who is going to be in the NFL Hall of Fame someday, but yet never coached a college game in his life.
Crazy to think about. And Tony, I guess we're surveying this situation. I guess I'm curious, what are you hearing, or what have we heard? What are the other schools in the conference? Is this a hire that they look around and they're like, oh, okay, we got to be on our P's and Q's? Or is this kind of just met with business as usual? Because I think that kind of is indicative of potentially what's to expect here.
Yeah, I've talked to people at 3 different schools in the ACC at this point, and it's kind of a shrug of the shoulders, and we'll see what happens. Nobody that I have spoken with yet is saying, oh my gosh, this is going to change the way we do business. We got to be on our game now. It really has been, the business is the business. We have spent the past X amount of weeks recruiting. We had signing day a couple of weeks ago, and they're now in a position, because of the revenue sharing that we're going to get, they can speak to those dollar figures with the players ahead of time as they're recruiting them, as they're talking to them about coming out of the portal, or talking to their own players about staying out of the portal. It's they have the ability to say, here's how much money we're going to be able to give you. Here's how it's going to lay out. Here's how you're going to get paid. And they're actually signing contracts now. That is in full motion right now. And we are 1 week into the portal with, it ends on December 28th. There hasn't really been a lot of recognition from the coaches, or response, I should say, from the coaches that I talked to, that have been like, wow, this really changes the landscape. It's been, we'll see how he does. We're busy with the portal. We're busy with signing players. We're busy with trying to keep our own players out of the portal. We're 24/7 on what we're doing. We're not going to really worry about him right now.
Yeah.
There we go. Tony Siracusa, last word on sports, joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Tony, appreciate you taking some time with us, and look forward to catching up with you later on.
All right, guys. Always glad to do it. Be well.
Thank you. You too. Hey, when we come back for our final segment here on Main Street Sports Today, we will expound on some of the points that Tony made elsewhere in college football. So stay tuned when we come back to the Lee Company studio after this.
So, you want to be a part of the Busy Bee team, huh? Well, how do you see yourself fitting into the organization? Oh, I get it. You want to be a weather bee.
This holiday season, the largest lantern festival in the country returns to Nashville Zoo. Experience more than 1,000 all-new, handcrafted lanterns, towering creatures, magical worlds, and a North Pole village. At the center of it all, the Smashville Ice Rink. Welcome back to Zoolumination at Nashville Zoo. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever.
Wrapping up Throwback Thursday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Again, happy we were able to get Tony SIRACUSA from Last Word on Sports to talk a little bit about the Bill Belichick hiring over at North Carolina. If you missed that, go back and check it out. But as he mentioned, that was far from the only hiring here in the last little bit, because apparently you can go home again. West Virginia has brought Rich Rodriguez back, much to the chagrin of Jacksonville State fans, I reckon. And all of a sudden, UNLV is a coveted coaching position. Who knew? Dan Mullen coming out of the broadcast, well, out of the, what is it? It's not a broadcast booth. I wouldn't want to say that. He's not doing play-by-play.
Studio.
But he's doing all the others. Coming out of the studio to take over the Rebels after Barry Odom takes the Purdue spot. So a lot of, I guess it's that time, but did not really see Rich Rod going back to West Virginia.
It was something that feels like it's caught steam. We mentioned on the show last week, Bo, you said, Jacksonville State, maybe you don't want to win that game versus Western Kentucky. It's going to be hard to keep your coach. Little did we know that he ends up going back home. And for me, it's hard not to just feel all warm and fuzzy and tingling inside going back to those epic seasons that he had, a 60-26 record. I got Ashley Combs, our good friend of the show. She's a Pitt girl. She loves to remind everybody they spoiled all the fun. Otherwise, we'd be talking about Pat White and Steve Slayton maybe winning the national championship. But man, it's hard not to feel warm and fuzzy and nostalgic. West Virginia, kind of scrappy, but kind of toiling in mediocrity. I don't know that he necessarily will bring them back to the levels that they were, as far as a national championship contender. But I feel like he could certainly get them going back in the right direction, because if his tenure at Jack State was any indication, the guy's still got it.
Yeah, and I mean, West Virginia was kind of the best of times for Rich Rod. I mean, you mentioned 60-24 over 7 seasons there, 4 Big East championships. He jumps out of there, takes over the Wolverines. Didn't go so well there. 3-year stint. Was out at Arizona and had some success, but kind of up and downish. Went back into the assistant ranks at both Ole Miss and at Louisiana Monroe before landing at Jack State, and led them out of FCS into FBS play and a Conference USA championship. And, kind of got himself back on that, close to that Power 5 or Power 4 trajectory, and I guess on that Power 4 trajectory as he heads back to West Virginia of the Big 12.
Yeah, really cool to see.
That.
Yeah, really, really cool to see. And it felt like, he was kind of content. We got a whole episode I could give you on his tenure at Michigan, kind of caught a raw deal there, but kind of felt like he had kind of settled into, hey, I'm just going to be a coordinator and kind of just go through the motions in the final few years of my career, and then caught lightning in a bottle at Jack State. And it will be fun. I will definitely be tuning in. The couches are officially on alert in Morgantown again. There will be some burnings coming up soon. And real quick on Dan Mullen, we just asked John a couple days ago. He was maybe rumored to be back in the mix, not at a coordinator role, though, like he said. He didn't think he would end up in Michigan, but instead he takes a gig. And it kind of feels like Belichick in a sense. Feel like he'll do great things at UNLV. The blueprint is already laid out now. If you win that league, you can go to the playoff. Heck, you can get a bye. And so go there, have some success. And if you want to stay, cool. But if you want to get back in the big ranks, that feels like those opportunities will be there for Mullen going forward also.
Well, absolutely. I mean, Barry Odom has blazed that path from Missouri to UNLV and now back to Purdue. Now, Dan Mullen looking to maybe retrace those steps on his own, having, kind of flamed out at Mississippi State and doing his penance in the studio and now coming back. And, just the fact that UNLV can be an entryway into bigger and better things. I mean, UNLV has been a coaching graveyard.
Absolutely. They have kind of been wandering in the wilderness, not really doing much in terms of national prominence, and then poof, caught lightning in a bottle in a sense this year. They got the turnover slot machine, maybe to increase their cachet a little bit, but they were a win away from making the playoffs in their own right this year. And then as a result, Odom does blaze the trail, like you said. I think Mullen, it's not like the cool thing for him is he's not walking into a completely barren situation. He doesn't have to rebuild them entirely now. They're still going to have some pieces presumably coming back, and will be fun to compete in the Mountain West now.
It's been a couple of days, and I don't know if this is a final thing now or what, but Northern Illinois to the Mountain West for football only was a hot topic that we didn't quite get to over the last couple of days. Like I said, I don't know if that has become final or if they're still just considering that, but I got questions. I mean, Northern Illinois is in the Mid-American Conference as a full member. If they go to the Mountain West for football only, where are they going for everything else? Because I can't imagine the MAC's going to let them stay.
Yeah, it seems odd, right? Feels like the MAC wouldn't want them to stay. Feels like you wouldn't necessarily want to split everything up like that internally on your own campus there in DeKalb. But I don't know. This seems there's more. We're going to do some more digging on this because it seems a bit odd.
It really does. Yeah, I think that's something to certainly keep an eye on. And maybe it was just a lot of smoke and no fire because, again, that was a couple of days ago and not much else on it since then. The Associated Press released its all Southeastern Conference team here in the last bit. UT's Dylan Sampson was your offensive player of the year. South Carolina's Kyle Kennard was your defensive player of the year. Diego Pavia was the top newcomer, and Shane Beamer of South Carolina was your coach of the year. Sampson, 1,485 rushing yards, 22 touchdowns, third nationally in rushing touchdowns, fifth all-time in SEC history, and was on all but 2 ballots as the SEC Offensive Player of the Year. But it feels like he's really done all of this under the radar.
Feels like he's gone under the radar, especially as Tennessee's offense. They were putting up just crazy eye-popping numbers, and the offense was getting a lot of attention in general. And then as the season went along, it seemed like the defense kind of got more of the shine. But, yeah, he had a fantastic year, as quiet as it was kept.
Absolutely. We will talk more about all of this and then some on Friday's weekend warm-up of Main Street Sports Today. Be sure and check us out beginning at 2 o'clock tomorrow. We'll see y'all then.